I parked my car in Boston Yard. I'm severely overworked and underpaid. Welcome! Today we are going to be discussing something that some have said is the greatest debate of our lifetime. Are Brandon Sanderson's characters actually funny? To start us off and get us in the mood, I'm going to read 3 different quotes, and I want you to try to guess which one is light song, wit, and Shalon. Number 1, you see, the great thing about madness is it's all in your head. Someone says to them, "You found your tongue." Surprisingly, it was in my mouth. I always forget to check there. And lastly, I try to avoid having thoughts. They lead to other thoughts. And, if you're not careful, those lead to actions. So, have you figured it out yet? Which one's which? Drum roll, please. They're all light song. So one thing about Brandon's characters is that a lot of times they do have a very similar kind of quippiness or this kind of like false wit. Like it's not actually funny, but they say it in a way where they're trying to come across as funny. And to a lot of people that does bother them. Now, not every single character has the exact same kind of humor. Lift is very distinctive from Light Song, and Shalon is very distinctive from the Lopen. But I would kind of characterize Lift, Lopen, and Wayne as their own group. And then I would characterize Shalon, Light Song, and Wit as another group that are all very similar. I do think that the quippiness or the humor, even Brandon I think has admitted that that's his toughest thing to write, is to try to manufacture a type of humor that isn't necessarily exactly his. I think he said that wit is actually the one that gives him the most trouble. Like he had to watch a lot of stand-up comedy to try to get like the rhythm of jokes or in punchlines and things like that. And wit is very hit or miss. But thinking about this recently, especially with Dawn Shard, and just to let y'all know, I'm not going to spoil any plot points or any really major character stuff, but Lopen and Dawn Shard got me thinking about what is it that makes Brandon's funny characters work, because for me they really do. Some of their lines definitely don't land, or even maybe half of the lines don't land, just depends on your subjective taste. Dad humor is definitely something that, you know, I use myself to the detriment of others, and so I kind of have an affinity to it, but even with me, too much of it is too much. But for me, what actually makes Brandon's funny characters work narratively and in the story and actually have a purpose is when the humor is serving to either mask an actual pain from their past, or it's trying to make someone else feel better or lift their spirits up, give them hope and things like that. That's when the humor actually, even if it's bad humor, it still works because it's about the character and what they're trying to accomplish by trying to be funny. So, for example, Shalon obviously has a lot of pain in her past, and so her quippiness is kind of like a shield to resist engaging in any kind of meaningful conversation. A lot of times when conversations are starting to turn any kind of semi-serious, she deflects by throwing out a joke. And sometimes it's kind of rude or insensitive and things like that. And a lot of times it's not funny, but that's part of her character. However, if you look at someone like Wayne, who I loved in the first Mistborn book, as the series goes on, he kind of devolves into this shtick where like most of his time is spent just trying to be funny or doing like slapstick, even in serious moments, and it really undercuts the seriousness of those moments because he's acting like it's not a big deal. So if we're in a big fight or a climactic moment that should be very scary or intense or have consequences, and Wayne is just running around like Groucho Marx, just trying to make everything light of it, that's not the situation where you need to be making light, because it just kills the stakes. For me, it's basically the more of a main character they are, and the more time that is spent towards trying to be funny, the worse it is. So Wayne is probably the worst in that case for me, even though I still like his character. It's the way he's utilized, especially in the later 2 books, that it's too much of his time is spent just trying to be funny without really any purpose other than to entertain, and that's when it falls flat. Whereas the Lopen in Dawn Shard is like a perfect balance, because his humor is trying to help others, and then we also get a realization from Lopen later on about his humor, which I won't spoil, but it just was so great. And I think Brandon, it was kind of a response to the readers as far as his funny characters, and it was kind of like a meta thing, and it was just really cool. If you read Dawn Shard, you probably know what I'm talking about. I think that him and Dunchard trying to make other people feel better about their situations by acting a fool is something that I can get behind. Like, I support that, really. Even though it can be annoying, I'd rather you do that than not try to help someone at all. So with Lift, when she's just basically being immature, every time Lift sees a butt, it's like heavy breathing. But sometimes Lift just shows up and her flippantness actually works to kind of be an uplifting force for characters who in that moment feel lost. And the thing with Wit is that Wit is not very funny at all, but knowing who Wit actually is, and then those scenes that you have with him where he is actually serving like a great purpose, it actually makes those sincere moments hit home like so much harder, because you're just used to him being like just kind of flippant and arrogant. And then when he comes in and he's actually being real, you start paying attention, you start listening up a lot more. The humor that Brandon uses has been used for contrast really well in the past, and the more he does that, the better it is. It's all got to be tied back to character. When the funny or not funny, it doesn't really matter based on your taste. It's about, are they actually using their humor to somehow positively affect the story or to help another character, and that's when it really hits home. And Lightsong is really one of the best, because even though Lightsong's humor isn't actually funny all the time, it's all tied to his character, like pretty much 100%. And that's why no matter how his jokes are corny or cliche or don't work, I mean, some of them are funny, but some of them are just terrible. It's because it's all tied to character, especially when you get to the end of the book and you learn completely like everything about Lightsong, his backstory, and just his apathy for the entire world and their existence. It all makes sense. It's all tied in very well. I'm not saying that any of his characters' humor is not tied to character, but there's a diminishing return when the less it's actually used for specific surgical purposes versus just kind of being spammed out there and hoping that some of it resonates with the reader. And last thing before I go, if I had to rank them right now, I would say that Lightsong, then the Lopen, then Wit, then Shalon, then Lift, and then Wayne. Hey, that's all for today. Let me know down in the comments how you would rank them or your thoughts. If you disagree with me, what works for you with the characters and their humor. And if you haven't subscribed, there's a little button, and if you want to click it, it's super easy and it helps me out a lot. Thank y'all for watching. Y'all have a great day. Peace.